It happened many years ago. There was an emperor called Augustus who wanted to know exactly how many people were in this world. And so he decided they all had to be counted. This meant that everyone had to go to the town their family came from to be counted there. And so Joseph, who lived in Nazareth, had to go all the way to Bethlehem to be counted there, because he belonged to King David's family. And so one day, Joseph broke up from Nazareth together with Mary. Mary and Joseph were engaged to be married, and Mary was expecting a baby. It's a long way to go from Nazareth to Bethlehem if you have to walk, even if you can sit on a donkey. So when they arrived in Bethlehem, Joseph had to find a place for them to stay. There was no room for them at the inn. Joseph finally found a place. He found a place where there were animals, perhaps a cow, perhaps some goats, a stable where there just were straw for them to settle in. But that night, Mary knew her time had come, and she gave birth to her firstborn. It was a little boy, and she called him Jesus, and she wrapped him in a blanket and laid him in a manger. On the night that Jesus was born, there were shepherds out in the fields about Bethlehem. All of a sudden, a bright light shined around them, and they became so afraid. This had never happened before. But then there was a voice saying to them, "Don't be afraid. I've come to tell you some wonderful news. Tonight in Bethlehem, a child is born, and it's our Messiah. And I'll tell you how to find him. Go down into Bethlehem and look for a child wrapped in a blanket, lying in a manger." And all of a sudden, the sky was filled with music, and there were angels singing, "Glory be to God in heaven, and peace on earth among those who trust in him." And after a while, the music stopped. And the shepherds sat there stunned, until one of them said, "Let's go down to Bethlehem and see if we can find the child the angel has told us about." And they ran down the hills into Bethlehem, and they found Mary and Joseph and the baby, and they told everyone what they'd seen and heard. And Mary kept all those words in her heart and often thought about them. Around the time that Jesus was born, some wise men came from the east into Jerusalem. They followed the star, and when they came to Jerusalem, they asked people, "Where is the child that's born King of the Jews?" Nobody could tell them. But rumors came up to King Herod, who became very upset and angry. He didn't want anybody else to be king. So he asked some politicians and religious leaders, "What do you know about the child that's going to be born King of the Jews?" And one of them said, "The prophet Micah has said that out of Bethlehem will come a ruler that will govern the land of Israel." Then King Herod had the wise men brought up to his palace and asked them when they had first seen the star, and then told them to go to Bethlehem. "If you find the child there, come back to me and tell me, so I too can go and worship him." And when the wise men left the palace and came outside, it was dark, but there was a star again, and they followed it till it stopped over the house where Mary and Joseph and the baby were. And they were full of joy. They fell down and worshipped him, and they brought him gifts, gold and myrrh and frankincense. And when it was time for them to go back to their own country, they took a different route and did not go back to King Herod, because God had told one of them in a dream to take another route.
guide us to thy perfect light. In the name of God with us, amen. What on earth are the shepherds doing at the manger? And what on earth do the kings do there? These three mysterious visitors from the east. Matthew's gospel never tells us actually that there were only three magi, astrologers from the east, Matthew says, without giving a number. But in popular imagination, and to our minds today, there are three. We see three. And these are kingly types, cultural elites. In Herod's orbit, they have the ear of this paranoid and insecure king. And like the shepherds, they are drawn unavoidably to the improvised crib of this tiny, prone, susceptible newborn. Like the shepherds, these three have come to see something. They've come to offer gifts, we are told. To see, to offer. But the verb used most frequently to describe both shepherds and kings is to adore. They have come to adore. The adoration of the shepherds, the adoration of the magi. Adoration, our catechism tells us, you can look at page 857 of the prayer book if you're feeling inquisitive. Page 857. Adoration is one of the 7 types of prayer, along with praise and thanksgiving and penitence and oblation and intercession and petition. But adoration comes first. And listen to how our prayer book describes it. Adoration is the lifting up of the heart and mind to God, asking nothing but to enjoy God's presence. The lifting up of the heart and mind to God, asking nothing but to enjoy God's presence. In other words, it's not about any action you can take. It's not about anything you can accomplish or virtue you can display. It's not about saying you're sorry or deficient. It's not about your longing for the changes you'd like to see across the world. Adoration comes first in the prayer book's listing because it's a form of prayer that simply sits still. It sits still in the context of loving relationship. In other words, don't just do something. Sit there. It's touching the source without action or agenda or to-do list. It's the opposite of purpose-driven. And I think, too, that adoration is closely linked to joy. Joy. Because joy, unlike mere happiness, always involves, doesn't it, a sense of inclusion in something beyond the self. Joy isn't a mood, but rather a way of life founded on connection, simple connection with others, with a spouse, with a lover, with a wider purpose, with a cause, with God. So adoration and joy are what the manger is all about. Love with us. Love with us. Love asking nothing of us but to show up and be connected. And to grow somehow larger and more generous, to grow into a different person in the process. If you don't worship, says Martin Dysart, he's the psychiatrist you may remember in Peter Schaeffer's play Equus. If you don't worship, you will shrink. It's as brutal as that. If you don't worship, you will shrink. It's as brutal as that. That's part of what is happening in the Christmas story Roundhill just shared with us. A story you've by now heard perhaps hundreds of times. Shepherds, magi, kings, the entire social system, in other words, plebeians and elites, looking upon something small and vulnerable and being made new by this tiny, fragile newborn. Shepherds, magi, kings, connecting with the love that lives under all we see, the love that lives under all we see, recognizing themselves as children of that love and in sacred sibling relationship. Sound familiar? Healthy and joyful churches are all about this very recognition that we are meant to be loving siblings. I've been remembering this week a graduating high school senior at the last church I served in downtown Boston. She was going off to Northwestern. She was 17. She had grown up in that church's chorister program, so 2 90-minute rehearsals a week over much of her teenage years. I said, "What's it like to be leaving all of this? Are you excited about going on?" Here's what she said to me. I'll never forget it. I never knew, Patrick, I never knew until I came to church that I could love so many people. She said that joyfully, and she was also slightly mystified by discovering this about herself. I never knew that I could love so many people. I think we're given Herod in this story as a contrast, aren't we? As others grow somehow larger, more generous, more at ease with divine mystery, Herod shrinks into his own paranoia and insecurities. He collapses into his own exhausting need to win, to possess, to manipulate, to be the center of attention. What king, thinks Herod, would bow before another king? Not I. Not I. Never I. And the consequences of Herod's shrinking, massacre, forced migration, were catastrophic then, and they're catastrophic now. Shepherds and magi and God knows who else made their way to a manger throne. Adoration. A sort of basking in connectedness. It's the only way the world can live. Oh, come, let us adore him. Amen.